first things first. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter, and just like he is every day, Mr. Nick Wright. Good to see you guys.
Good morning, Jenna.
You as well, Jenna. I like
know
that
what
shirt.
you were looking for, but glad you found it.
We're okay.
Look over, your hands under there, it's all good. Hey, we've got a great show today. Thank you, by the way, for that compliment.
No problem.
I'm on an 8-second delay. The Lakers are reportedly worried about LeBron's health. Mike Tomlin's coming to the defense of Big Ben, but we start the television program with the New England Patriots. Even before the news of Gronk retiring, the champs were looking for more weapons for Tom Brady. Antonio Brown, in a head-scratching move, released an audio tape of a conversation he had with his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, where they discussed the Patriots' interest in making an offer for Antonio Brown. The Patriots also reportedly inquired about Odell Beckham Jr. as well. CC, those are big names, which I'm sure would warrant big money. How much would a top wide receiver help extend Tom Brady's career, if you look at it from first the football perspective?
Well, talent always helps. But the thing about that is there's two different rules in the NFL. There is what New England does and what the rest of the league does. The rest of the league, man, as far as your offense, it's not going to be as efficient as possible unless you have a top flight, a number one bona fide receiver. But New England, through the years, how they decide to move the football, they've done it a couple different styles. First few Super Bowls, it was ground and pound, good defense, turn the ball over, play on the short field, play the percentages, all that. Tom Brady came into his own, top 5 offense in the league. Throw it as much as you want to it. Take advantage of the running backs on linebackers, tight ends on linebackers and nickelbacks. Take advantage of the rules in the passing game. This last Super Bowl, the Rams don't have one linebacker on their roster over 230 yards. You know what we're getting ready to do? We're getting ready to jam the ball down their throat. They play the Chargers. The Chargers don't happen to have any big linebackers. You know what they're getting ready to do? Jam the ball down their throat. So they know how to do this as far as style. And the number one thing that I see with New England is how they're going to manage the salary cap. And as long as Tom Brady is playing, Belichick has had a philosophy where Tom Brady has basically given them, carte blanche to be able to take him at a discounted rate that no team in the history of the league has ever had that type of advantage. And Belichick, what he's going to spend on the salary, on aging players. So the best receiver Brady had was Randy Moss. And how did he get him?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, he was playing his way out of Oakland. They could get him dirt cheap for a 4th-round pick. And why did he lose Randy?
And he took a pay cut.
Took a pay cut
so he only went for a 4th and came there to prove himself.
And why did he end up getting shipped out?
Because he was doing great on the field and said, I want to be one of the top paid wide receivers. Oh, it's time to go bye-bye.
See you later. And that's why, listen, I didn't think the Antonio Brown trade ever was a real possibility. As soon as New England heard part of trading for Antonio Brown was going to be giving him a new contract, that's, I think, because they could have easily trumped what the Raiders gave in draft compensation. The Odell situation I thought was more interesting because I don't think Odell's getting a new contract anytime soon. His new contract kicks in this year. He is on his new contract. And because the signing bonus portion was already paid by the Giants, Odell at around $15 million a year, that doesn't break the bank for New England. They pay Stephon Gilmore around $11 million per year. That would be in line with the way the Patriots do things, but they weren't going to come up with the draft compensation that obviously the Browns did. They weren't going to give up a 1st, a 3rd, and a player. So for New England, probably would have been a 1st and a 2nd. But as far as the need, Jenna, how important is it? I don't think having a great wide receiver extends Brady's length of career. I think it extends his ability to stay in this 2nd or 3rd prime he has discovered. Because if we think about Tom Brady, the MVP caliber Tom Brady, not the game manager champion Tom Brady, that started in 07 with Moss. And from 07 to 2017, he basically went uninterrupted with an elite level pass catcher. Moss to Gronk until last year. And Gronk last year was no longer an elite-level pass catcher. And what did you see? You saw Brady's numbers take a haircut. You saw the Patriots' offensive numbers take a haircut, and you saw them have to reinvent themselves. They were still super effective.
But it's why we talked about the re-emphasis on the run game for the Patriots, because they had no one they were going to throw the ball to.
Right. Last year, was the first time in a decade the Patriots did not have a bona fide, legitimate number one receiving option. we haven't looked at them as having that because their number one receiving option had been a tight end. But he was so dominant as far as yards per catch and in the red zone, that's who he was. They are now in a position where they go into next year without that spot. It's why we had talked, if you could set the personality stuff aside, Odell would have been devastating for them. Odell playing all the wide receiver positions, Odell playing the slot some, Odell on those choice routes, but they obviously didn't want to come up with the draft compensation. But I'm not surprised at all they considered it because of how brilliantly he would have fit what they do offensively.
Well, it's just not only because of him. Belichick does his homework. Like, as far as pro football, he's the most thorough at every aspect of it, knowing the rules, what you can do, the practices, what you can do in the games, what you can do, free agent and players. How many other bad players on other teams has he turned into real productive players? That's what he does. And they have looked at trying to upgrade the wide receiver or their patch catchers. That's what they did. They were in a – I mean, they did something special when they drafted Hernandez and Gronk.
Yep.
Like, they realized how valuable pass catchers were. I just believe at this point there's not a wide receiver that's going to make Tom Brady's career longer. Because when Tom Brady's tired of playing football, like, he's going to quit playing football. But as far as them not having a number one and having the luxury of Gronk, even though he was a tight end, being a number one wide receiver, that is going to have to be addressed. I don't believe they can continue to be dominant and be a run-oriented football team, which they were last year.
There was a report that you know, the Patriots were very interested in Antonio Brown, but the Steelers didn't want, for obvious reasons, to give the Patriots to bolster them. I'm sure they know the same thing that we're talking about here. This may not be the best year for the Patriots. Why go ahead and is there something to the fact that maybe teams like the Giants or the Steelers wouldn't want to deal with the Patriots?
I think
wouldn't want to help Tom Brady out when he's going to obviously clearly need it?
I think the Steelers are in a very unique position. I think teams in the AFC East and teams that think they are contending for championships in Tom Brady's window, obviously, in the AFC. They obviously don't want to help New England Patriots. So I get that part of it, and I disregarded that when I was talking about why the Antonio thing didn't happen. We had talked about that, about how the Steelers might say no AFC North teams and not the Patriots because we're trying to win now. The Giants fans might have a rivalry with the Patriots, but those organizations, the Giants were going to take the best deal possible. They're not competing on the Patriots the Tom Brady window. I think the Giants love the idea of sending Odell to the AFC, whether it was the Browns, the Patriots, the Jets, maybe not the Jets because they're in New York, the Bills, whomever it would be. So, no, I don't think that is part of it. The only place where having a dominant receiver could, I think, extend the length that Brady plays is, see, you mentioned he's going to play until he doesn't want to play anymore. Well, what Tom Brady is playing for is to win Super Bowls. And if you add talent to where they are, if the Patriots go 9-7 one year, that'll probably be Brady's last year. It won't be as fun for him. But if you have continue to be dominant, continue to appear in AFC championship games at a minimum, why would he stop?
But this is the thing with Brady. Brady believes in Belichick more than any of us do. Brady sees what they've done. How they've won Super Bowls, how they've reinvented themselves, how they changed, how they were defense, what they did this year. So Brady's got confidence in him. Brady never goes demanding, hey, you know something? I need a wide receiver. Like, because he knows that Belichick is the best at pro football and will get him the necessary. You think Brady came up with the concept, let's go out and get Josh Gordon. Oh, yeah, he's not doing well. Let's go out and get him. No. He depends on the system of their scouting and what they do to be able to bring him the type of talent and come up with a game plan with Josh being there, the overall continuity, with Dante Scarnecchia being there. Like, at some point, we just have to believe they know football better than everyone else. There was a better chance of me playing for the Patriots than Antonio Brown, okay? Like, because two big problems. Pittsburgh wasn't going to train. Kevin Colbert, the general manager, he wasn't going to trade to them because if they're going to get to a Super Bowl, listen, they got to go through them. And Antonio's demands of wanting a new contract, that would have never happened in New England. That's why I don't believe that probability. Odell has the type of contract that I thought they might take a chance on, but his personality would scare them away. So that's why I don't believe that was a fit.
Gotcha. All right, we'll talk more about this coming up. But on the other side, is LeBron James' health the Lakers' biggest concern? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. We'll get to to the Lakers in just a second, but first, Wizards and Suns, and Jeff Green turns back the clock with this dunk on Dragon Bender.
Jeff Green. What up, C?
Jeff Green trying to get some get back, man.
Of course.
After he got his foot stepped on in L.A. the night before.
Listen, Jeff Green, this is the time of year he's got to turn it on. About to be contract time for Jeff Green. Go get that money, my man.
Warriors and Grizzlies.
Reunite with LeBron.
Different Green. Draymond unleashes the full court pass to KD for the buzzer beating.
Randy Moss, he mossed him.
He did.
Oh, yeah. 2.2. Great play. Great throw by Draymond. Great catch by KD, putting his body on him, shielding him, making sure he can keep the ball over the outside shoulder, just the way I teach it to the kids. Okay, KD, I like it.
Lakers Jazz. Donovan Mitchell spins away from Lance Stevenson and slams it home.
Now, I'm going to tell you, you always try to give JaVale McGee credit. Like, man, Cris, he's really smart. Oh, yeah. He's really smart. He's getting ready to get punched on right here.
Well, I'm not going to give him credit for this. You're 7'2", JaVale. Go up and contest.
You said he was smart.
Listen, I said off the court he's smart. You told me I have to stop bringing that up.
He was off the court.
Okay, yeah.
Same game. Scott Machado tosses up the alley-oop to Alex Caruso, who puts it down.
The old Scott Machado to Alex Caruso. What is this, Karate Kid? Alley-oop.
Didn't we think about moving the show to L.A., man? Didn't someone...
Chris was like, man, Nick, with your relationships, with the Lakers going to be important, we got to do this show in L.A. Now it's a Machado-Caruso combo.
And you can see with his relationships, we're in New York City, people.
Sticking with the Lakers. That was a real laugh. I would never have laughed like that.
He's so funny.
Among their many needs this offseason, a new head coach. All signs pointing to Luke Walton being let go after this disappointing season. The Lakers reportedly have their sights set on Mavericks head coach Rick Carlisle. The issue there being Carlisle's under contract with Dallas until 2023. When asked about it, Mark Cuban said, LOL, LOL, that's my quote. Nick, what's the most important quality in the Lakers' next head coach?
Proven, established coach that understands modern offensive basketball, in short, and a guy that understands how his team cannot just get mollywopped in the 8 to 12 minutes a game LeBron doesn't
Facetious?
play. No, seriously. The 8 to 12 minutes a game LeBron doesn't play. Don't get outscored by a dozen points, like this has been a problem for LeBron not only this year but the last few years, if we're being honest. But I'm really curious who is. I tried to do some digging on this when I saw this yesterday, and I can get no straight answer. Who is leaking these names? How was Rick Carlisle ever a realistic option? Like, I didn't understand it. Like, we mentioned it yesterday. Of course, he'd be a great fit. He's one of the 5 best coaches in basketball. You could argue he's the 2nd best coach.
Yeah, he's in the 5 best coaches, but probably one of the most underrated coaches. So even if people want to question, oh, that might be a little high for him. Well, he's definitely one of the 2 or 3 most underrated coaches. The way he teaches basketball, the scheme that he runs, and the atmosphere that he has with Mark Cuban, everything that they do as far as taking care of the players. Let's not forget who the Dallas Mavericks were. The Dallas Mavericks were the first team that had duplicated their locker room. They duplicated their locker room because they wanted the visiting team to feel like they were at home. So any potential visiting player felt like, as a free agent, this is how we treat the people. Mark Cuban catered the meals for the visiting team. Only team in the NBA to be able to do it. So
they're playing. Their plane is a luxury nightclub. The Mavs are as good of an organization in sports. They now have an incredibly bright future.
Yes.
You've got Luka Doncic. You have Chris Stapps, who I understand people are a little ambivalent on him, but they feel they're bullish on where they're going. And Carlisle's a champion there. So, like, the idea, I expect Pop to be the next Lakers rumor. Listen, Los Angeles, you're in a rough spot on the coaching search, because you do not have the luxury of going with a Nick Nurse type. And by that I mean, hey, an up-and-coming assistant coach that we think could be really good.
Yeah, and the reason why you can't do that one was because that was the plan you just had.
Well, it was the plan you just had, and you cannot go for upside. You have to go for certainty, because you've got 2 or 3 years to contend with LeBron as an MVP caliber player. And I know some people think maybe that's too many years, like that's maybe it's only 1 or 2 years. I'll say 2 or 3 years as LeBron is an MVP caliber player, so you have to go with the known quantity. So the known quantities are Ty Lue and guys who have been fired because they didn't work out other places, or guys currently in the league. But what you can't just shoot for bullseyes. Like, Carlisle is a spectacular coach. He's one of only a handful of coaches in the league that has won a championship with his current team. Those
and
guys
under
don't
contract,
walk.
and Cuban loves him. No one's going to let him. I mean, there's just so many reasons.
To me, too, it speaks to the mismanagement that the Lakers have constantly done under the new regime. Well, let's just put two names out there that, guys, I know I can't get. Doc Rivers already has a secret agreement with the owner. They just hadn't signed it. It's just a matter of time. So that was laughable as far as that name being released. Rick Carlisle going to coach, leaving Dallas when Dallas just got right. Like, they're going to be in the lottery, and now with the two stars, Dirk Nowitzki is holding off retirement. You know the reason why? Because things are bright in Dallas. Things are nice in Dallas. It makes no sense for Dirk to retire. He might as well stay an extra year. That's how good things are for the Mavericks right now.
And so the other thing, to circle back to your question, I didn't mean disregarded. The other most important thing, other than the X's and O's part, and I mean understanding the modern NBA offense, which I don't think Luke Walton does, and I think a lot of coaches in the NBA, to be fair, don't. I'm not sure Mark Jackson does, and he's one of the names on the list. It's why I'm squeamish on him. I know Jason Kidd doesn't. Is you do have to command the respect of LeBron. And this is something Broussard said, and a lot of people have taken that as, are you kidding me? Why would LeBron not instantly respect whatever coach comes in? Man, because it's real life. And not everyone commands instant respect. Maybe in an ideal situation you would, and that doesn't mean LeBron would act disrespectfully to somebody, but someone that LeBron feels can actually be, to steal a term from our friend Coach Mangini, a force multiplier. Someone who can be a value add. Who is that? It's the only reason, to me, it's not a sure shot it's going to be Ty Lue is because we don't know who's going to get fired this offseason. And sometimes good coaches get fired because ownership gets impatient because of some situation. So we don't know who else is going to be available. But to me, Ty Lue is the guy that we know checks those boxes.
This is a very strange year for LeBron. He doesn't make the playoffs for the first time in as long as he can remember. He suffers a major injury, which sidelined him to the point where his team is out of the playoffs. Now there's a report out there that the Lakers are actually genuinely concerned about LeBron's health. Do you agree with that? Are you concerned about LeBron's health moving forward?
Well, anytime you have that first injury, you know, I think that all bets are off now till the end. That's the first one. We've seen it happen now. And now everything becomes important. That's why I would have rested him this whole time. Everyone else was saying, oh, he should play and everything. No, he had a significant injury. He rushed himself back. You could see it when he got back. He was not in the type of shape. But I believe that the injury, like most great players, or most players, they play through injuries. They aren't able to get the type of numbers. So I believe his injury was significant. I believe that this offseason becomes the most important offseason he's had in a lot of offseasons, not only because of the free agents, because what's he going to do from a cardio standpoint? Now, I do believe in LeBron James. And I believe in him so much because I heard this report. I went back and watched game one of the finals last year. And good Lord, LeBron James, if he's even close to where he was, forget about what he did in the Eastern Conference, all those series, but what he did against the Warriors in game one, if you happen to just forgot about it, go back and watch it. And what he did in that game, the numbers he put up, how he dominated the Warriors, even though they did lose, JR didn't call a timeout, didn't shoot that game. Man, he was incredible. So for me, I am concerned, Jenna, now because I know that injury was significant. I'm concerned about this offseason, what he's going to do. And ultimately, I do know, regardless of how healthy he is, if he don't get another star, he's not going to be able to win. So there's a number of concerns that makes this offseason very important.
And there was a really interesting social media post by the lady who helped him recover from his injury.
Yes.
I think we talked about this off the air, where she said, listen, essentially, he tore his groin, and it's a 6-month injury. And she talked about how shocked she was he was back in 6 weeks. Now, that does speak to Chris's point that if that's true, and I was adamant he needs to play, if that's true, then it was foolish for him to ever come back. If it is true, like then they knew they weren't winning a championship this year. Forget coming back and being on the shelf. They should have just said, man, shelf him. And, by the way, the Lakers stock was really high at that moment. It's like, wow, before LeBron got hurt, beating the Warriors, it seemed like real contenders, bad luck. The optimistic angle is, despite the injury, despite not being 100%, since he's been back, 28, 9, and 10. 28, 9, and 10 in his averages. The other optimistic part of it is, since his rookie year, the 3 worst years of his career, first year in Miami, first year back in Cleveland, and now this year with the Lakers. The pessimistic side is, yeah, but this year is the latest year. And he's at 50,000 plus minutes. And in the last 8 seasons, he's played 11 because of the playoff runs. And once you get hurt, you tend to start getting hurt. That is what NBA history says. That is what athletic history says. And there was another odd moment, and Windhorst alluded to it in his article the other night, where he slipped on the floor and banged his knee. Those are the types of things LeBron has been as good as any athlete I've ever seen at avoiding. You and I talked about this once. You asked me why he's been so good at not getting hurt. Some of it's his body. Some of it's his training. Some of it is he's been able to avoid those fracases where guys fall, where bodies like he knows
Step on a foot, things like
what
that.
rebound to go for and what rebound not to. So there is real concern.
Yeah.
The one all-time great athlete who had never been injured got injured. And is that a trend or is it an outlier? We won't know until next year.
All right, we'll break there. Coming up, Mike Tomlin speaks out on Big Ben. Hear from him next on First Things First. On Saturday, the season's biggest free agents hit the field with their new teams. First, Bryce Harper and the Phillies take on Freddie Freeman and the Braves. Then the Giants face off against Manny Machado and the Padres. It all starts at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on FS1 and on the Fox Sports app.
Got my Bryce Harper NL MVP future ticket in. Let's go.
All right, glad that happened. Time for us to go viral. Kobe Bryant was on the Late Late Show with James Corden last night. They were playing a game where Kobe had to either answer a question or take a bite out of a cow tongue. Take a listen.
Kobe,
Yes.
I would like you to rank these legendary basketball players from best to worst. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant.
Seriously?
Best to worst, or
Seriously?
tuck into that cow tongue, baby.
You know what I'm going to answer, but I'm not going to answer it because then everybody's going to sit there and debate about it. So I'm just going to take a bite of this.
Bite the other end. Bite that end.
Why that end?
Bite that end.
This
You
one?
can answer. You can answer. It's pretty straightforward, I think. What do you
All right,
reckon?
fine.
No,
I'm
Ori-
the best. Michael's second best. LeBron's third.
Kobe handled that perfectly.
Of course he did.
And that's what he should think. And that's what, listen, if Kareem was forced to answer, Kareem should say he's the best. LeBron said he thought he was the best. He got a lot of criticism for it. We know Michael thinks he's the best.
Michael's the only one that doesn't say he's the best.
Okay.
What?
I saw
Where
that
does
Hall
Michael
of Fame.
say
I
that?
saw that Hall of Fame
But
speech.
have you heard Michael?
Okay, so I don't.
Huh?
I knew this was
What?
going to happen.
No,
you're going to
you
be
didn't.
like, show me the exact quote.
Yeah, when did he say? Tell me.
I have enough.
Tell me.
I have enough circumstantial evidence to tell you Michael Jordan believes he's the greatest player of all time. And he should believe that. Just like Kobe should believe it and LeBron should believe it. Anybody that's on the all-time pantheon should believe it.
I'd love to set that up here between you two. I'd play a little James Corden, do a little question or cow tongue.
Just ask me anything you want, Jenna. I'm an
Okay.
open book.
Let me think about it, and I'll get
You
back
want me
to
to
you by
rank
the end
people
of
on
the
this
show.
show?
That's not
No
what I want you to do
problem.
at all, actually, especially among us.
Where's
Let's go.
Mangini?
Give me
Stories
the
to
name
start
of the
your
last woman
morning.
you dated before your wife.
Okay, here we go. You know what? Where's the cow tongue?
Who are you talking to?
Yeah, I know. I didn't know who you were talking
I
to.
like working out. I like chicks.
Okay.
The old
My high school
Okay, go ahead.
yearbook. Thunder hosting the Pacers. Paul George stepping up against his former team last night, scored 31 points in a Thunder win. Hey, Thunder had to go on a 24-0 run to do
my
it,
goodness.
though. OKC has won just 2 of their last 7. They're now in 7th place in the West, 1 game ahead of the Spurs. See, what do you make of the Thunder right now?
Man, you can't. What Thunder team's going to show up? It's like the Celtics. Now, the Thunder gave us a good stretch of basketball. It's like, wow, they could be dangerous, but they don't shoot the ball. Nick talked about the offense in the NBA. You need to understand to be able to do it. They're one of the worst, if not the worst shooting team from deep that we're going to have in the playoffs. So I don't have a lot of hope for a team that's shooting that bad.
Listen, they're an extraordinary defensive team, but to beat a good team in the postseason, to get past the second round, and maybe to get past the first round, depending on their matchup, it's going to have to be a 2-week stretch where they shoot well. But can they shoot well for 6 weeks, which is what it would take to make the NBA Finals? No, they can't. So much like last year, this Thunder team, exciting, fun, but has a defined ceiling.
All right, moving on. Anthony Davis has made it known that he wants out of New Orleans. Not a surprise to us or fans or the Pelicans or to his former teammate DeMarcus Cousins. In a recent interview, Boogie proclaimed once the Pelicans didn't re-sign him, he knew AD would want out. Nick, what do you make of this?
This is obviously 100% accurate. Now, AD might have wanted, we might have found out this summer that AD wanted out if they had re-signed Boogie.
Right.
This summer, he might have turned down the extension.
Right.
But there is a 0% chance if they re-sign Boogie that AD midseason demands a trade and the season goes to hell.
But, Nick, you said this last year. When DeMarcus was hurt, I don't care that he's hurt. Because you have to invest in AD and bring in DeMarcus, their relationship. DeMarcus playing the best basketball of his career. Both of them thriving on the court together. Man, Drew Holiday, of course.
It was such an emotional letdown for Anthony Davis that coming off the best season of his pro career with the best teammate he's ever had, to see him leave and they get nothing in return, that's what set this entire thing into motion. So Boogie is 100% correct.
You see that duplication? You see that? I gave you credit.
You think I don't give you credit? See, you should listen to the radio show, man. I credit you all up and down it.
To the NFL now, Jordy Nelson, that would require him to
My
listen
buddy
to the radio
Johnny's
show.
listening, and you don't give Steve credit.
Jordy Nelson has called it a career, retiring after 11 seasons. Jordy spent his first 10 years with the Packers, where he ranked second in franchise history in touchdown receptions, third in catches, and fifth in receiving yards. See how impressive was Jordy's career?
Jordy had an impressive career. If you look at the line of good wide receivers that have come out of Green Bay, guys that they have developed, started with Donald Driver, with this quarterback being Brett Favre and our Aaron Rodgers, Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson. Of those three, they all had good careers together. Also, they had good quarterbacks throwing to them. So it helps with your career when you have a star. We saw 1 year after getting away from Aaron Rodgers, his career got away from him.
People, listen, he was a touchdown machine at the peak of his career. And I was in Kansas City when he was at K-State, which is about an hour and a half west of where I was living, in a team we covered. If you'd have told me when I was watching him at K-State he was going to have a 10-year NFL career, lead the NFL in touchdowns a season or two, I would have said no chance at all. I think he had an outstanding career. He's one of the better receivers in the history of that franchise, which has been around 100 seasons. So all the credit in the world, Jordy Nelson, an excellent career.
Yeah, your law firm don't represent people.
We do not. We do not.
Finally, Joel Klatt's mock draft is out on FoxSports.com. He's got Kyler Murray going #1 overall to the Cardinals. If that were to happen, Josh Rosen would likely be on the trading block. Our guy Klatt also reporting that 3 teams, the Chargers, the Pats, and the Giants, are all interested in dealing for Rosen. Nick, which team most needs to deal for quarterback Josh Rosen?
Well, credit to Joel, because he's been on this. And the Chargers were an interesting team I didn't see coming, but makes sense. They got one of these class of 04 quarterbacks. Class of 04 quarterbacks we talk about. Eli, who is trying to get pushed out the door or not pushed out the door, depending on who you listen to. Big Ben, who obviously is still playing at a very high level. There's also Phillip Rivers, who just his wife had their 9th child. And I don't know how much longer he's going to play. So the Chargers are interesting. But the team that needs him the most is obviously the Giants. The team that the entire league should hope does not get him is the Patriots. Because that's just a perfect fit for the Patriots to be able to hit the ground running when Brady's done. You were talking about what a bargain he is for whomever trades for him. And I think people think, well, yeah, because he's first-round quarterback. But because, as you mentioned yesterday, the signing bonus has been paid, he makes whoever trades for him, if he is traded, they pay him $550,000, $650,000,
yes,
$750,000.
Wow.
That's it.
Even if you take the 5th-year option.
Right. And so the 5th-year option, because he was a top 10 pick, is going to be upwards of probably 17, 18 million bucks. But just work that in.
Yes.
So then it's 4 years, $20 million.
Sign me up.
Right. And even if he doesn't play for the first 2 years.
Right.
And so for the Giants, he obviously would play sooner than in either of those other 2 places. Chargers or New England, they would expect him, of course, not to play at all this year, and maybe not for a couple years, but it would still be worth it. The other part of this that I thought was really interesting from Joel was saying they have one firm offer of a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah,
no one has yet offered a 1st-round pick, and that's what they're holding out hope for. It also, though, to your point yesterday, Jenna, speaks to Rosen's hearing this. and what this will do if he stays there to his confidence moving forward and the team's ability to be like, man, it was all lies. We always believed in you.
No, I think it'll inject a little confidence in him to know that there are teams out there, good organizations out there that want him. It's if he does stay that I think that's where you take the biggest bruise, obviously,
of course,
to your confidence and what this will do for, especially after the year he had actually playing.
This is wherever he's sitting right now, he's not the same that he was even at the end of the season. Because once Kyler decided, once Cliff got the head coaching job, once the intel started getting in Kyler, is he going to play in the NFL? He decides he is going to play. Then he goes from I'm in pro baseball to now I'm the number one pick in the draft, and the great things that the coach has been saying about him, his psyche, I believe, will be damaged forever in Arizona. The only way to repair that is be able to get him somewhere else where he wouldn't have to play immediately and he can sit and learn under quarterbacks that have had success in the league and then go on to have a very good career.
But I would say to any team out there that's thinking about trying to trade for Josh Rosen, go back to what your draft profile of him was, what your scouting report of him was after UCLA. Because the very smart football writer Warren Sharp pointed this out yesterday. The Arizona Cardinals, according to his rankings, 32nd ranked pass blocking offensive line, 32nd ranked rushing attack, and they had a head coach that the team thought deserved to be fired after 1 year. Who would have been successful there? So that 3-10 season when he was the starter, the 55% completions, like how much that was on him and how much of that would Darnold have looked the same way? How would Josh Allen have looked? How would any of the first-round quarterbacks other than Baker, who seems to be in a different class than these guys? So if the Patriots hand off the baton from Brady to Rosen, it's the AFC East just for the next, it won't just be 20 years, it'll be 30 years in my eyes. So the Giants are the team that I think should make this move if he is available.
Warren Sharp makes a great point about that. But I do remember one of the great quarterbacks, the only one that I believe suffered through a season like that, and it was Troy Aikman. He went through that 1-15 season. But people in the football thought that Troy Aikman was special. Last year, what we saw with Josh, he didn't look special. He looked very, very average to questionable. Does he have the guts it takes to be a quarterback? Not can he throw. Is he accurate? It takes a certain amount of guts
to get back out there.
Yes, and to be able to get beyond what he visually saw last season.
Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. While other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, Robinhood doesn't charge any commission fees, so you can trade stocks and keep all your profits. Plus, there is no account minimum deposit needed to get started, so you can start investing at any level. The simple, intuitive design of Robinhood makes investing easy for newcomers and experts alike. View easy-to-understand charts and market data and place a trade in just 4 taps on your smartphone. You can also view stock collections such as 100 most popular. With Robinhood, you can learn how to invest in the market as you build your portfolio. Discover new stocks, track your favorite companies, and get custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right moment to invest. Robinhood is giving listeners of First Things First a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help build your portfolio design. Sign up at first.robinhood.com.
All right, let's move on to Big Ben now. With both Lev Bell and Antonio Brown now gone, all focus has turned back to the Steelers' quarterback. His leadership or lack thereof has been a big topic of discussion this offseason. Number of former Steelers have shined light on Roethlisberger's questionable ways, while multiple current players have defended the quarterback. Mike Tomlin was asked about Big Ben. Take a listen.
I have no problem with his play or his leadership. I've heard some of the scuttlebutt in which you mentioned. I'm focused on the guys that are within our group and on our team. I think that's what's appropriate for me. I have no reaction to former Steelers and things of that nature. We were a 9-6-1 football team last year. We all need to look in the mirror in terms of what we do and how we do it, starting with me. And so that's the approach that I'm taking. That's the approach that I'll ask him to take, and not in response to any criticism from the outside or anything of that nature. Just doing what's appropriate in terms of us being as good as we need to be.
See, you joked earlier. What else is he going to say, obviously, when asked about his quarterback? But what did you make of what Mike Tomlin had to say?
Well, I've also been listening to Mike Tomlin since all the 3 Bs have been together. I listened to everything he said about all of them. Man, he didn't tell us Antonio was freelancing. He didn't tell us Antonio was showing up when he wanted to, had a different set of rules. L. Bell, he ain't never say nothing about him. He had got suspended. He never said nothing negative about him. Never say anything negative. That's the way coaches are supposed to coach. It's a pact that the coach tells you. I'm never going to speak bad about you in the media. And I never expect you to speak bad about your teammates and your coaches. So when you're wrong, I'm going to take the blame for it. That's what coaches do. That's the partnership you have with coach. So, yes, I expect Mike Tomlin, because I know what you've been telling me the last several years, bruh. I've been listening to you. So now you want me to be like, of course he's going to say that about Ben. But forget what the talking people on TV say. You can't disregard people that have been in the locker room, because there's a clear distinction. The people that have left the locker room outside of James Harrison have criticized Ben and his overall leadership. Now, James Harrison said something that you need to be a grown man and go across there and address that with Ben and make yourself available to him, which he did. But also, Ben came into the locker room that he was already a part of. These other guys came into the locker room that Ben was already running.
Right.
So for me, forget what I know. Forget all the coaches that I know. Forget all the players that I know. Forget my opinion. I'm going to listen to people like Ryan Clark. I'm going to listen to people that put on the chin strap with you, because they have the real intel. And when they start letting that family business out, it's got to be forced out, because, man, we lie for years about our teammates. Man, we don't tell the truth because it's something we have agreed to do. It ain't no one else's business. They weren't there. But these people didn't make this stuff up about Ben.
Right, listen, like I believe in my heart that Cris Carter loves and respects me. But I won't really know how Cris feels about me until one day, however long in the future, he and I aren't on this TV show together and somebody asks him about me. Because until then, you know what Cris says when someone asks him about Nick? Nothing but great things. And I think he's being mostly honest, but he's also being a good teammate. Yeah, exactly. But that's being a good teammate. And you know what? Mike Tomlin, people can criticize him whatever he wants. He's a good teammate. Mike Tomlin's been thrown under the Big Ben has not kept his pact on that. I'm not going to criticize you. You're not going to criticize me. Big Ben's like, well, half that sounds awesome. The other half, we'll see.
Right.
And so, but Mike Tomlin has been consistent with this. But the other thing is this, like, this is who Mike Tomlin is going to the dance with and is going to have to try to go home with. Like,
especially at this point, with all the moves that happened in the offseason.
Absolutely right. So all he can do is talk good about him. And the other thing is, because a lot of folks in Pittsburgh very, very upset with me and this show, think we are too critical of Ben Roethlisberger. Let me make this very clear. Of course, there aren't 7 quarterbacks in the league you would trade Ben for. Because, even given all the off-the-field stuff, the on-the-field production, what a warrior he is, and his ability to make big plays in big spots makes him worth all the nonsense that surrounds him. It's just frustrating because the nonsense doesn't have to be there. It's a relatively easy fix. Talk a little less. Be a little more bland. Take a page out of Eli's playbook and just say, gosh, I don't know. Probably my fault. You know, Odell left. Man, Odell's the greatest the greatest player I ever played with. He's awesome. Love my coaches. Like, there's an element of that is when you are the face of a franchise that's expected of you. Big Ben's gone his own way on it. But he and Tomlin have to have a great working relationship this year, because they're the two best and most important people left in the other organization.
The best team I was ever on was the 1998 team. And we ended up finishing 15-1 the regular season, lost the NFC Championship game overtime to Atlanta Falcons. But in that, we went on 2 magnificent runs. To start the season, 7-0, blew out teams on the road in Green Bay on Monday night, destroyed them, embarrassed teams. The margin, like, we were blowing everyone out. We go to Tampa Bay, week number 8. Tampa Bay's got a good team. We're undefeated. I've never even said this on TV. We had one of the coaches got himself in a situation, showed up late to the game. Now, there wasn't no way. We were hot about it, too, man. We were upset about it. We weren't going to say anything about that so it would affect Denny Green and his overall leadership. People would have immediately been the question, Denny Green, what kind of team is he running here? No, we just ate that. That's just part of family business. And there's other things that have occurred throughout my career. No, we're not going to tell. So I expect Mike. This is what Mike is supposed to do. And the most significant thing he said was, we were a 9-6-1 football team. everyone associated with the Pittsburgh Steelers need to look at themselves and get better, because that is not the expectation.
Say what you will, he delivers on the field. Who came out of his quarterback class?
Oh, Eli
Manning on his way out. Phillip Rivers, they're already looking potentially to someone to back him up when he's on his way out. We're not talking about who's going to come in. We're talking about extending.
No, he's a stud,
Ben
man.
Roethlisberger.
No, he
All right,
is.
take a break.
Great player.
Coming up, did the Patriots miss out big time by not trading for Ordell or AB? That's ahead on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, former head coach Eric Mangini joins
up, my
us.
friend?
Still
Good to see
tan,
you.
Eric. That means it was a real one.
Crazy
Wasn't
how that
a fake
works.
one. All right, Coach, time for our Subway Choice moment. We're talking
Coach,
about...
I knew you before them. Why you get weird when you come here with them?
Is that weird that I got the tan?
Well, I'm just saying how you know.
No, Chris just likes calling people weird.
We're talking about
We're totally normal.
Cliff Kingsbury and the challenge that lies ahead, coming off a 3-13 season, holes to fill on both sides of the ball, and a little question about the quarterback position. At 39, Kingsbury is not the youngest head coach in the NFL, but he certainly has a way of connecting with his young players. The new Arizona coach said he will allow cell phone breaks for his players every 20 to 30 minutes during team meetings. Coach, you like this approach?
Surprisingly, yes. Here's why: is we brought a learning specialist
Oh, boy.
into.
Here we go.
No, we brought a learning specialist into the Jets, and one of the things that this woman talked about is that every human being after 20 minutes needs to reset the clock, and you can reset the clock in a lot of different ways. So if you're watching film, it may be turning off the film and doing something on the board, or having the guys stand up, but you've got to refocus their attention. Now, the idea of incorporating cell phone breaks, I think, is a variation of that concept. The issue is, if you're going to let them get up in the meeting, leave the room, come back in, it's hard to corral 50 guys and to bring them back in. So it's how much time are you allocating for that? Because by the time they get up, they go do their thing, they come back in, they settle down, they start paying attention, there's a lot of time that's wasted. So if you're doing that every 20 minutes, it could be a little bit cumbersome. So he's going to have to work that out. I like the idea of resetting guys' attention. I don't know if the way he has it in mind right now is really going to work.
So I don't know if this specific idea is the exact right idea, but I do know that there are a lot of smart people that have done studies about when people learn the best, how people work the best, how people are most productive. And we, in big-time companies, corporations, educationally in this country, ignore so much of that data in order to do it the way it's always been done. We know young people learn better after 9:30 in the morning. We know it.
And
But
yet,
school
what time does
starts at
school
8
start?
because it's always started at 8, and so I guess it always has to start at 8. Like, we know that the companies that have more of an I remember when Google first, they were like, hey, we're going to have free food here, and we're going to let people take naps or whatever it is. People thought that was, what are you doing? We know that raises productivity, but a lot of companies are like, are you kidding me? You're at work. You need to be working. So the idea that the NFL would be, look at this and say, oh, really? The new young college coach is going to give cell phone breaks. What's next? A team Twitter? Like, okay. But the idea of changing things and embracing information to do things more productively and efficiently and effectively, I will always support. Now, Chris, you and I talked before the show, and this is a good example of, I'm also, though, not the people he has to relate to, and how the veteran players will hear we're getting cell phone breaks will land with them, even if there's data behind it, I think is an interesting counterpoint to what I think is a smart, at least, idea.
Well, the thing that I don't like at the first owners meeting, a guy who has no experience in the NFL coaching, just got fired from his college job, but now he's got something that he thinks is going to be an advantage to his team. I don't care that he thinks it's an advantage. I care that he shared it with the public. He's new. Everything that he said is my first impression. So now I know this doesn't work. I know it's not proven. And I know the study hadn't been done on athletes. It might have been done on normal human beings, but athletes and how they learn, visual learnings. And I haven't been in many football meetings that have been over an hour. It's not like you sit there like a college class, like you're in there for 2 hours watching film. Now, you will have sessions, but you will have breaks. And the NFL schedule, there are so many breaks during the day. From the time you get to that building at 6:30, 7 in the morning, to the time you leave at 5:30 or 6, there are a number of breaks in there. I just don't believe that you need to communicate what you're doing as an organization to people outside. And I know it's not been. Tell me, what's the track record with this?
No, it is certainly, we don't know that this specific thing, the cell phone breaks during NFL team meetings, that study obviously hasn't been done. That hasn't been proven. But because something hasn't been proven doesn't mean it won't be effective.
No, but to Chris's point, this is a little Chip Kelly-esque where you're going to show everybody how innovative you are and how you're going to change the league and how the ideas that you bring in are so revolutionary that nobody's going to ever catch up with it. I don't think it's as extreme as Chip Kelly was. But if you do think it's a good idea, why share it with anybody? To me, the value in ideas are to give you a competitive edge. So the second that you start putting it out there, I think then it becomes an issue. And I'd say the other part of this is once you promise people something, it's hard to go back. And until you've been through an NFL schedule as a head coach, you may not want to build in those 20-minute breaks every single time. There's times where you may have to go 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and it's just the way it is. I'm not saying it's the peak of efficiency, but when you promise it, it's harder to take back.
And there is no environment like an NFL locker room. You bring up how do I get them corralled back in? Because, man, there is a lot of horseplay in an NFL locker room. I'm talking about every crazy game, every invention, everything. I mean, if you give a guy a break, they will be going, man, we can go play 3 hands of cards. Like, we can go play, man. Like, these are the types of things these guys do. So sometimes I think the people Google working with is not the same as the people we working with.
That's a totally fair critique.
And as a young coach, you're the one that gets sent. Now, he won't have to deal as a head coach, but as a young coach, you got to go in the locker room. Come on, guys.
Let's go.
Let's go. It's like, it's painful at times getting them back in the room.
We're all enamored by the next new, young, bright, wide-eyed coach in the NFL and whatever ideas or ideals that come along with them. I think we loved what Sean McVay did last year. And so it's almost as if whatever the next new guy has coming up, that's going to be the new shiny thing and it's most likely going to work. And there's this more open policy to talk about it. When you see Sean McVay talking about we're going to open the offense, we're going to do this, maybe that sort of laid down the groundwork for a guy like
Sean McVay, all his experience has been basically in pro football. He's been born and raised in pro football, raised on the NFL sideline, raised in the NFL locker room. And the things that he's doing, they're not new. The other coaches out there are doing. Most of the stuff he's learned in the league since he's been in the league. Now, he put a different spin on it, but Kyle Shanahan, another one of those up-and-coming young guys, he duplicated
what his dad did.
A lot of the same stuff that his dad did. So this is not something that someone has done. So Sean McVay, younger than him, there are new, fresh spins on old things. So that's what Sean McVay and what I've seen with him more in Los Angeles compared to what people think. Just because he's young, every idea that he has is not a new one.
Well, and it should be noted, Kevin Clark wrote in the Wall Street Journal in 2015 that Jim Tomsula in his first year with the Niners, and I know that didn't go well, he did the exact same thing. It was cell phone breaks. It just wasn't a big story because maybe he wasn't as interesting as Cliff Kingsbury. There wasn't Kyler Murray. There's a lot of discussion around the Cardinals this year. My overarching theme of this is innovation can work, and new idea, just because it's the way it's always been done doesn't mean it's the right way. Now, having to deal with people but it's the way I've always done it, and it's the way I'm comfortable, that is a real thing. And that is a real hurdle to get over. And whether or not there is going to be a perceived arrogance of, hey, I'm the new guy who's got fired from tech, and now I've got the best practices, I understand that could rub people the wrong way.
When the NFL switched to a new helmet company, new technology, everything, we're going to protect these guys like never before. There were guys that were grandfathered in because they had been in the league double digits. Larry Fitzgerald, Tom Brady. Tom Brady just gave up his old helmet. Even though they had the new technology, they gave him all the information, he was more comfortable with his old helmet. There are things as far as technology and things as far as when you're playing a sport that, yes, I'm more comfortable with it, even if I might be at a little bit of a disadvantage. I don't see this as something new. It's not like they just invented cell phones. To me, I know it's not proven. So anything he tells me, I know he made it up. And I know this age group he's never been with. So to be able to say, I know what the NFL schedule is, I know what guys 21 to 33 want and what they need, to me, that's just he's assuming a lot in doing that.
All right, Coach, stick around. Take a break coming up. Did
Get
the
you a cell
Patriots
phone break, man.
miss out big time by not
you're
trading for
working so
Odell
hard.
or AB? Next on First Things
Get on
First,
the
we got to
gram,
take a
man.
cell phone break.
We know you love the gram. You love the gram. You love the gram.
FS1 is your destination for the day's best sports shows. Tune in for the biggest personalities on the biggest stories. We get you started right here with First Things First. Catch it on Monday through Friday, only on FS1. Back here with Coach Mangini, we're talking Patriots. Even before the news of Gronk retiring, the defending Super Bowl champs were looking for more weapons for Tom Brady. Antonio Brown, in a, we'll call it a head-scratching move, released an audio tape of a conversation he had with his agent where he discussed the Patriots' interest in making an offer for him. The Pats also reportedly inquired about Odell Beckham Jr. as well. Both of those guys now playing for a team not named the Patriots. Coach, how much would a top wide receiver help extend Tom Brady's career?
First, Coach, I got another question. What do you think about the release, him taping the conversation, him and his agent, and then putting it out there? Now he's gone to Oakland, signed an extension. Answer that part first before you get to Tom Brady and his weapons and
that
whatever
part
she
is
is.
amazing.
That's what I'd rather have.
It's amazing. And look, it should be a signal to everybody that any conversation could easily become a very public conversation, and any interaction could very easily become a public interaction. And
basically, Antonio's made it clear the last few years, anytime you speak with him, it might be being live streamed or recorded. And I'm sure, I don't know what the two-party consent as far as like wiretap and as far as recording laws were in the states he was in, but I feel like this was probably a crime. I don't think
it seems like based on something
charges.
else that happened New England related, you must have permission from two parties to be.
record.
I heard that. Yeah, that's part of another case.
you have to start getting those things that you wire, you know.
You want them, yeah, absolutely.
To see whether or not you're being. Yeah, that's not good business. When I thought about this question, to me, extending Tom Brady's career is going to start inside out as opposed to outside in. They've got to replace the left tackle. They've got to have a consistent and diverse running game. They've got to figure out what they're going to do with Gronkowski. And as we talked about yesterday, that may not be a one-person answer, and it probably won't be because it's hard to find a guy like that. So it's a set of packages. And then the slot receiver has always been the core of the New England offense. Then you push out. Now, that being said, having a guy like Randy Moss was a game changer for New England. Having someone that was that special a talent where teams had to constantly game plan for what he did created so many different opportunities for everything that traditionally had been so successful for New England inside out. So I see why they're looking for that spot. They're probably not going to get it in the draft. They're not going to go receiver first round. They haven't done that. So to look for it in free agency makes a lot of sense, and they've had success with that.
And listen, Odell's not Randy. I get that. Odell, you mentioned before the show, Odell's a great athlete. Randy was an amazing athlete. 6 inches taller than Odell Beckham.
Yes.
Faster than Odell Beckham, and can jump higher than Odell Beckham. And so Randy had all the measurable, Randy would have been a spectacular athlete at 5'10", but he was 6'4.5" with a basketball player's vertical leap. So I know he's not Randy, but what would Odell have done for this offense? What type of effect would it have? What trickle-down effect? Set aside any of the off-the-field stuff.
Look, I know you love Odell. I'd rather have Antonio Brown. I mean, personally, I think that Antonio Brown is when you look at those two players, Antonio Brown is such a huge threat, such a dynamic player, a threat outside, inside. Trying to defend against him was always ridiculously challenging.
The reason I brought up Odell instead of AB was because I don't think AB was ever on the board for them. Because Pittsburgh wasn't going to trade him to New England, and New England wasn't going to give him this extension.
And contract demand.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying in terms of impact on the system, I don't know how Odell would fit because I don't know how he fits in the locker room. I don't know how he fits within the scheme. I'm not sure. Does he run the right routes on a consistent basis? Because here's how it works in New England. If you run the right route and you get open, you get the ball. It doesn't matter if you're Odell Beckham, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, Troy Brown, take your pick. If you run the right route and get open and are in the right spot, you're going to get the ball. So it doesn't matter who you are. Will Odell do that? Does he do that? I don't know those things about him. What type of impact does he have in that locker room? Because you need to fit in when you go there. Regardless of how many stars you think are on your chest, That doesn't matter. You are a soldier and you need to fit in.
Well, let's look at the Drew Brees model and what they're doing in New Orleans. The last couple years, the team has changed. It got better on the defensive side, but they've done it from the inside out. Had a two-back system the last couple years, got far more physical. Last year, weren't as dynamic, didn't have as many three receiver sets as they had in the past, and that has extended Drew Brees. Now, Michael Thomas, like he's been special. Kamara, like he's been special, but they changed how they were functioning. I like the fact that you said New England, if they're going to extend Tom Brady's career, it's not going to be a wide receiver. Wide receivers can make the game easier, but they don't make a quarterback play longer. Being able to protect them and having a running game, they make the game more comfortable for them.
Which they did last year, which they started to do last year.
Absolutely. So when you have that, when I can come back out of the 65 plays and I can hand it to a guy 30 times, or I can throw it short to guys in their system, which they're doing, that makes the game easier. Peyton Manning, why did he leave the game? He got knocked out of the game. He couldn't play anymore. He couldn't play at a high level. And most of the elite quarterbacks that we have seen, man, they didn't volunteer to quit. They got knocked out of the game. So you need to be able to protect him through the interior part, which I told you the most valuable players they have on that offense is the center and the two guards, and to have Sony Michel, a young running back who they can put a lot of carries on.
And I think Drew Brees is a great example because that transition that they made has helped him so much. And the volume that he was getting hit for a while, where he was dropping back as much as he was, where they were trying to throw down the field as much as they did, he was getting hit at a rate where it was just a matter of time before
he was knocked out.
He was knocked out. And the transition, I think, is fantastic there.
All right, Coach, we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Coming up, talk some basketball. Is LeBron's health the Lakers' biggest concern? That's next on First Things First. On Sunday, NASCAR heads to Texas Motor Speedway, where Kyle Busch looks to continue his hot start. It's all Sunday, 3 Eastern on Fox. And also on the Fox Sports app. Back here on First Things First, NBA champ Antoine Walker is here. What up, Twan?
What up, Al?
How are you? Good to see
all
you.
good.
That's better. Getting there. Getting there.
We're getting there. She ain't from Chicago, but we try to
She's
give her.
close. She's like south and over a little bit. We'll get to the Lakers in just a second.
Do you
but
know where
first,
Chicago is on the map?
Nope.
Stop.
Nope.
Man,
Just
leave
let's
her
keep
alone.
going. Thank you.
Yeah, we need a cell phone
Thank you. Wizards Suns. Jeff Green turned back the clock with the dunk on Dragan Bender.
And another one of those great Suns draft picks, the Dragon, gets boomed on. How old's Jeff Green now?
We need that, man.
Was Jeff Green a teammate of yours, Antoine?
No.
I mean, I got to check the records. Jeff Green trying to get another contract.
Jeff Green was a part of that original group in OKC, man.
Oh, you're
Forget
right
about that. Yeah.
Warriors Grizzlies. Draymond Green unleashes the full court pass to KD for the buzzer-beating layup.
If Randy Moss was in the NBA, that's what he'd look like. Nice KD. Draymond, nice pass.
KD with the big game last night. That was nice.
Most efficient game of his career.
My goodness.
12 of 13 from the field.
It was an
Shout out to
offensive
KD.
clinic.
Yep. He took one bad shot the entire game.
Same game. Scott Machado tosses the alley-oop to Alex Caruso, who brings it down hard.
Man, this might be the first balding white fella to catch an alley-oop in the NBA since integration. I mean, we don't see this very often in the league.
No, Lakers put a good G League team out there last night. That was a nice G League team.
Right.
It was nice to watch the little G League play.
I mean, they were in Utah. I thought they grabbed him from the stands. That is not my brother's Lakers.
Machado to Caruso.
Jeez.
All right. Speaking of the Lakers, among their many needs this offseason would be a new head coach. All signs pointing to Luke Walton being let go after the season. Lakers reportedly have their sights set on that guy, Mavericks head coach Rick Carlisle. The issue there being Carlisle is under contract with Dallas until 2023. When asked about it, Mark Cuban said, "LOL, that's my quote." Anton, what's the most important quality in the Lakers' next head coach? What do you want to see him have?
You got to have a player's coach for LeBron. I played for, Eric Spoelstra was the assistant coach in Miami. I know he's a player's coach. He's a very big part of Dwayne Wade's development, Dwayne being the player that he is now. So it was an easy transition for him to be able to relate to LeBron. And then obviously T. Lue. You know the relationship that LeBron had with T. Lue. And I just think you cannot get I don't think a Rick Carlisle type of coach is what LeBron is looking for. I think he's looking for more of a players coach where he's going to have a lot of input on what they're running, the offense they're going to be able to run, have a little bit more control in the locker room. And I think if you go out and get a big-name coach, that's not what LeBron is used to or he can relate to.
So I think that, listen, the Rick Carlisle thing's not going to happen, but let's stay here for a minute in regards to what you said. I think you are mostly correct. Where I will disagree is I think there are a select few coaches that aren't what you would call players coaches that LeBron would be 100% cool with.
Pop.
And Carlisle, Pop, Doc Rivers, guys that are so well established, champions in their own right, that they would have the immediate respect and attention of LeBron to be able to say, this is how we should do things. What you can't be is the David Blatt method, which is a non-players coach unproven, this is how we're going to do things, because why would I listen to you when you haven't shown me you know what you're doing?
The NBA is different than the NFL, but my experience has been that, especially when players get older, like later in my career, I was willing to go to St. Louis with Mike Martz, greatest show on turf. I would have loved to play for someone like Belichick. They weren't New England then, because of a great coach. He takes so much pressure off a really smart player. There's so many other things that their system accounts for that you don't have to account for. So if you want a player's coach and you have been and you're one of these great players and you have a high basketball IQ or football IQ, there's more work for you. You got more work every day that you have to do around the locker room and things like that. I just believe the way LeBron is right now, if he had the opportunity to be coached by someone who he thought was special as far as basketball, I think he would be open for that. I don't think they have a whole bunch of options. So a lot of times when you don't have a whole bunch of options, what do you go to? You go to something that's familiar. You trust that more compared to trying something that's totally new. And that's where I believe that Ty Lue falls in that class as far as the Lakers hiring him. I believe he will be the next coach for the Lakers.
I mean, hopefully he does. T. Lue's a good friend of mine, so I would love for T. Lue to get that opportunity. I think he's top on the list, but I think you got to put a couple other guys in that short list. I think Jason Kidd is another guy that could possibly get that job. I like Mark Jackson coming out the booth to be possibly one of the guys, too. He's a player's coach, too, as well. But I play for Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is the ideal player's coach. He's a guy that you can definitely relate to. He does very well with players. He did a terrific job with Paul, Ray, and Kevin as far as nursing their bodies and making sure that they were healthy at the end of the year. So that he would have been like a perfect coach. Rick Carlisle, I don't know very well for me to pose a real strong opinion on him, but I just think for him to go through the dog years of Dallas, he's not going to give that up now. Now you got a couple stars.
Luka.
Right. Yeah.
I know, so I say you got a couple players now.
Because you got players, you have a first-class organization. There is no questions about ownership. Do they know what they're doing? No questions about the front office. Like, Dallas is a great job.
I'm signed till 2023.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's the other part of it. The Lakers.
That's all guaranteed, too, now.
And what the Lakers are going to do when they bring up these coaches that are under contract, you know how you get a coach that's under contract? He has to want to go there. The team has to be willing to let him go. But you got to trade something for him.
Yeah.
That draft pick is spoken for. It's supposed to be included in an Anthony Davis trade, not in a Rick Carlisle trade. And Mark Cuban is not going to be outbid for his coach. And so I would really like to know where the Carlisle rumor came from. I tried to find out yesterday. I couldn't. I got stonewalled at every turn. Because it really, to me, makes as much sense as floating Pop out there.
Well, people could be reaching. I think, obviously, I'm a little biased, but I think T. Lue, if you really think about the ingredients that happen, LeBron's familiar with him. He knows how to coach LeBron. He knows how to deal with him on a day-to-day basis. If you look at when they won the championship, he made some great moves. The insertion of Dante Jones, Richard Jefferson. I mean, he's not scared to make big moves come playoff time. He's prepared for this moment, and I'm pretty sure he's a better coach now, even after having those years with LeBron.
Yeah, you make some great examples of Ty Lue. The adjustments that he made to give an undermanned Cleveland a chance in those games. When the system that he put in with LeBron, too, I have a lot of respect for that because they were not the most talented in most series that they went into absent of LeBron James.
Antoine, there's a report out there, switching gears just a little bit, that the Lakers are concerned about LeBron's injury. Moving forward. I mean, that he
about
maybe
his health.
About his health, but based on the injury and the time that he spent off, how concerned should this team be about LeBron James?
I mean, it's year 16 going into 17. You should be very concerned. Obviously, his health is very important. You got a 3-year window that you're trying to bring a championship back to LA. Obviously, right now they're not making the playoffs, so you try to figure out not to play him the rest of the year, so you don't want anything to linger into the summer. I think this is going to be the first time where LeBron gets a chance to really work on his body and decide what way he wants to play at, what type of conditioning he wants to be in. He's got a couple extra months now to figure that out. He doesn't have to rush his process as far as in the summertime, as far as getting in shape. He gets to take his time, gets his hunger back. Believe me, watching the first round of the playoffs, the second round, he will be sitting there. He will be upset. This is 13 years this guy's been in the playoffs. This guy's won 8 straight finals. He will be upset. He'll be rejuvenated. So I think this will be great for him. I think you have to I think shutting him down is not the wrong thing to do.
We can't disregard the concern. Guy never been hurt. So we don't know how his body's going to respond to being hurt. We also don't, I think it'll be good, all this extra time off. We also know how his body's going to respond to an extra 2 months off that he hasn't had since he's been an adult, basically.
Right. I think that reaction is more positive. Like, there's only people are crazy if they think that time off is a negative. I think that's a positive.
I think it's a positive as well. I just think he doesn't know the most productive way to use that time. Because that's the other part of it. Like, he has had a method as far as what I do June 20th until the beginning of the season. Now that's going to start in 2 weeks from today is when his season ends, and maybe earlier. But the other element is people should know, LeBron, since his post-rookie year, the 3 worst years of his career, first year in Miami, first year back in Cleveland, first year with the Lakers. Now, maybe this year is the beginning of the decline of LeBron, or maybe it's also that he's never been as good his first year in a new place as he was in the years that followed.
All right, Antoine, see you a little bit later on. Coming up, have the Patriots found the heir apparent to Tom Brady? That's next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, we are going viral. Last night, Devin Booker dropped 50 against the Wizards, becoming the youngest player in NBA history to score at least 50 in 2 straight games. And during the game, cameras caught this moment. Check out Booker mouthing to a fan, "I'm going for 50. I'm going for 50. That's what he said. I'm going for 50.
See, you really like Devin Booker. You liked him come out of Kentucky.
I mean, he's a scoring machine. Kid's 22 years old. Like, just because he plays there in Phoenix, they don't have a good basketball team. That don't make him a bad basketball player. The fundamentals as far as scoring the basketball, he's got all of them. Athletically, he's not the best athlete in the NBA. Jump high? No, he's not the tallest. No, but, man, shooting, dribbling, man, he's a scoring machine.
This Wilt Devin Booker graphic's quite good. I like it. 109, because he had 59 the other night, would have got to 60, but they fouled him, so
what are
he
you
couldn't
saying,
get
that
there.
50 plus 59 is 109?
Good job, Jenna. Didn't take your shoes off. Proud of you on that one.
I thought the kids went to school today.
Nope, the kids are right here on the desk with you, see?
Oh, yeah.
Time for stories to start your morning. Anthony Davis wants out of New Orleans. That's not a surprise to us or fans or the Pelicans or to his former teammate DeMarcus Cousins. In a recent interview, Boogie proclaimed once the Pelicans didn't re-sign him, he knew AD would want out. Nick, what do you make of this?
See, we talked about it this offseason.
Yes.
When people were saying, what's the market for Boogie Cousins? I said, New Orleans, you have to overpay for him. Not only because he then becomes at some point a tradable asset, but you are in the recruitment of Anthony Davis phase of your franchise. And if you take a step backwards in Anthony Davis's potentially last year with your team, it will ensure it's his last year with your team. Boogie's right. It's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I'm sure Anthony Davis knew this. I'm sure Rich Paul, they knew this as far as representing him. Yes, Boogie Cousins. And I think the most important thing, they were one of the rare tandems of big men that were successful playing together. Boogie was playing his best basketball. Man, AD was blossoming. We thought he was an all-star, MVP candidate.
And we don't know what they would have looked like in the playoffs. We never got to see them play a playoff series together. I'm not saying if they had signed Boogie, AD would have re-signed, but he wouldn't have demanded a trade mid-season for sure.
All right, to the NFL now. Jordy Nelson has called it a career, retiring after 11 seasons. Nelson spent his first 10 years with the Packers, where he ranked second in franchise history in touchdown receptions, third in catches, and fifth in receiving yards. See how impressive was Jordy's career?
Man, he had a very good career. He should be happy with his career. A lot of times I judge a career based on what's their potential. Athletically, as a football player, do they max out? And I believe Jordy Nelson maxed out. Nick, you talked about watching him play. I can't remember what crazy number he had in college, but he didn't have a number like a wide receiver. And he looked like, like a little unorthodox as a wide receiver, especially those uniforms they wear.
He was at K-State playing for Bill Snyder, and I was in Kansas City at the time, so we covered the team. He was their best player, but nobody thought he was going to be a 10-year pro.
Yeah, number 27?
I'll believe you. That I can't. I do not remember what number he was, but he was, for him to have 10-year pro, be arguably the best or second best receiver in a franchise history that's been there 100 years, that's spectacular.
And more important to you, Jenna, first-class guy.
Love that.
First class.
Love it. Our own Joel Klatt believes the Cardinals are going to take Kyler Murray #1. You can check out his mock draft on foxsports.com. Klatt is also reporting that the Chargers, Patriots, and the Giants have all reached out to Arizona to ask about Josh Rosen. Nick, which of these three teams needs to deal for Rosen more than the others?
Well, two of these three, well, you could argue all three of these teams have Hall of Famers at quarterback, but two of them have Hall of Famers that are playing really, really well still in the Chargers and the Patriots. So obviously the Giants need him more. He would be the best quarterback on the Giants, I feel, by the midway point of this season. I would fear the Patriots are going to get him. That the Patriots are going to, they bypassed on a quarterback in last year's draft, and they're going to end up getting one of the three best quarterbacks from last year's draft by trading the 32nd pick this year. Because it does sound, so the other thing Joel reported was nobody's yet offered a first-round pick, so the Patriots probably could get it done with the 32nd pick, and I still believe in Josh Rosen.
Well, there's no need to offer a first-round pick until you know that first-rounder, plus you don't have to add a sweetener to it. I believe Josh Rosen will be traded for a first-round pick. If not in this year's draft, definitely in next year's draft.
Traded now, but for a 2020 pick.
And, Joe, I'm studying your mock draft, Joe. You got the Patriots taking Will Grier from West Virginia with the 32nd pick. If it gets down that far, they will trade that pick to Arizona, and they'll have Josh Rosen compared to having Will Grier.
Will Grier had a great pro day, see. I'm just letting you know.
Did they have any defenders out there? Did they have any brothers out there chasing the wide receivers? Oh, no. They have anybody rushing the quarterback?
I don't know, man. I'm just letting you know.
Because I did watch him play in college.
I know.
Talk some Cardinals here. At age 39, rookie head coach Cliff Kingsbury is not the youngest head coach in the NFL, but he certainly has a way of connecting with the young players. Kingsbury said he'll allow cell phone breaks for his players every 20 to 30 minutes during team meetings. See, you like this approach?
Well, this is the thing. I don't like, I know this for a fact. I know that he can't prove that this doesn't work, but that's probably not the thing that discouraged me as much. Why do you have to tell everyone? Like, because I know he's never been in the NFL locker room with the type of guys, even though he played in the NFL for a cup of coffee, the type of guys that are in the NFL now are totally different than the guys there. So if he did this in college and said, oh, this worked in college, where those guys are 17 to 23. Now we are at the 21 to 33 age. And to say that that's going to work for them, like, I just think there's a lot of assuming in that. An NFL schedule already has a lot of breaks in there. Very seldom, besides being on the practice field, are you going to be in any part of the building more than 2 hours. Only on the practice field. There are times during the day you have walkthrough, you have weightlifting, you have short offensive meetings, you have positional meetings, you have special teams meetings, but those meetings typically do not last more than an hour. My biggest problem is how he communicated, and the second problem is he doesn't understand that when you are watching film and you do decide to take this break, that they're calling for a number of different reasons, but social media being one of the reasons why he explained. Man, guys are going to be going back, horse playing, playing cards, shooting dice, finishing a game of pool. That's what guys do in NFL locker rooms. They horseplay a lot in a lot of this dead time. Now, there will be a couple guys, Robert Smith, sitting in his locker reading a book and everything, but there'll only be a few of those. So I just believe, first, I wouldn't have communicated it to the media. I wouldn't have shared it with them, because when you have something good, like New England, they don't tell everyone. They just keep doing it and keep getting better at it. I didn't think that was necessity, and being able to get guys' attention and get them focused back, because after this break, they're going to be thinking about all those other things that went on compared to, is that going to help them be able to watch this last 20 minutes of film? I would question.
I think the most fair criticism is, why talk about it? And I can't create the argument for, here's why it's a benefit to talk about it. I just think he was talking. The coach's breakfast? A lot of people ask him questions.
It's just like when you get on trial. The lawyer tell you, answer the question, don't say nothing outside the question, because in that, all you're going to be doing, and they're going to find a hole in everything that you're saying.
And so I don't justify or I can't make the positive case. Here's why it helped his team to tell everyone about it. It makes them more attractive in free agency. I don't believe. So I think that's totally fair. And I also obviously can't prove this will help the team. But what I know is we have a lot of data across different industries of what makes people more effective, what time of day they're more effective, how long you can stay full concentration on one task without some type of, I don't want to call it a mental health break, but it's a type of reset your mind break. And I also know that almost everyone that plays in the NFL is young, my age or younger. I'm 34. So you said most 21 to 33. People my age and younger, some people maybe a little bit older than me, are addicted to their phones. Absolutely, unequivocally addicted to their phones. And whether or not it is effective in today's NFL to just concede that point and say, guys, instead of having it under the table and glancing at it, I'm going to let you know you're not going to have to go more than 30 minutes. Whether it's because you have drama at home, or whether it's because someone's trying to slide in your DMs, or whether it's because you want to see how many likes you got on Instagram, it's going to be 30 minutes until you get back to that. So let me keep you locked in right here. I think there is a case to be made for that. And I know that there's ways to do things differently that are more effective, and the NFL is so hesitant to change that, of course, people are going to say, why would you do it? We've been doing it this way for 100 years. Just because you've been doing something for 100 years doesn't mean it's the right way to do it in 2019. Now, none of that is to say, obviously, this will work and be effective, but just because it's not commonplace in the league, he's not the first one to do it. Jim Tom Sula talked about doing something similar 4 years ago, but I'm not going to dismiss it as foolishness.
Why do you think we have commercial breaks?
Right. We would do 22-minute segments, but Jenna can only go 9. She can only go 9 without checking the phone.
Right. There have been a number of college coaches, for the most part college coaches, that have come to the NFL and tried to do things a new way. There is not a lot of success. Pete Carroll, I would not qualify him, but he's the most successful one at it. The rest of them had failed miserably. Recently, all right, we know as far as the Oregon head coach,
Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly, he had a bunch of innovative new things that he was doing. I got this new way. I'm getting ready to attack pro football. Sent him back after a few years back to college right now. He happens to be coaching the UCLA Bruins. And you can go through it. Nick Saban, Steve Spurrier, a bunch of them, better coaches than Kingsbury, have failed at this. So it's not a matter the NFL is not into doing things new, because the practices and the meetings and everything are totally different than they were 20 years ago. So, but this is not the new thing that I think is going to change the league.
All right.
He'll be back in college,
Speaking of cell phone breaks, coming up, can Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and the Thunder play spoiler to the Warriors? That's next on First Things First. On Sunday, NASCAR heads to Texas Motor Speedway, where Kyle Busch looks to continue his hot start. That all starts Sunday at 3 Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Get excited. Back here with Antoine Walker. Paul George in OKC hosting his former team, the Pacers, last night. The All-Star forward stepped up big time, scored 31 points to help the Thunder win. They did have to go on a 24-0 run to do it, though. So OKC has won just 2 of their last 7 games, now in 7th place in the West, 1 game ahead of the Spurs. Twan, how serious a threat are the Thunder out west?
This is a tough one because you don't know which OKC team you're going to get. You don't know which Paul George you're going to get. Paul George needs to be an MVP candidate, not an all-star.
Yeah.
You know, he needs to play at the level that he was playing at early in the season, where we thought he was really in that conversation of being the MVP. But I think in the 7th spot right now is a good spot for them to be in. I think they will give the Denver Nuggets everything they can handle. I think they will have a legitimate opportunity to beat the Nuggets. They need to stay away from Golden State. They would need to get going in the playoffs and, you know, get a series under their belt before you want to go against a Golden State or Houston Rockets type team. So I think if they could stay in the 7th spot, and I know it's tough sometimes when you get to this point to try to pick your opponent, because obviously the West is so bunched up.
It's impossible right now in the West, more so this year than any year I can remember.
To pick your opponent,
1-2 is a half-game separation. 3-4 is a half-game separation. And 5, 6, 7, 8 is 2 games of separation. So even if you could say, even if they could lock in the 7th spot, they don't know if that's going to be Denver or Golden State. And so I know Golden State ended up pulling away last night. That was a 1-point game in the 4th quarter against Memphis, with a fully healthy Golden State team. So it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of just final day of the season, how it falls, what team you get in the first round. Are you on Golden State's side of the bracket or the other side of the bracket? So if you set that part of it aside, the question is, what's the best version of the Oklahoma City Thunder? And the best version of the Oklahoma City Thunder, in my mind, is a team that has been defending at this level all year, continues to defend at this level, but you get the Paul George you were seeing in January combined with an under-control Russell Westbrook. Because I had brought up, hey, maybe if Russ, he was shooting well post-All-Star break for 8-9 games, it's a mirage. Like, he's not going to continue any good range shooting from Russ is going to be short-term gains, not long-term. So it's going to have to be Paul George being dominant, as you mentioned, and a team that uses Nerlens Noel, uses Dennis Schroeder, and can suffocate you defensively with their first or second unit.
They got a couple issues. The biggest issue is in the playoffs, they're going to be the worst shooting team in the playoffs. Especially shooting from range. They are challenged as far as that. Can you win in this new NBA where the referees, so they're going to need some help. Last year in the playoffs, we didn't necessarily have the freedom of movement emphasis that we had this year, but last year in the playoffs, man, things got a little more physical than they were during the regular season. Are the referees in the NBA going to allow them, especially if it's Golden State, to handcuff them in that first series? I believe the best matchup is Golden State, that they could try to rough them up. I don't believe the matchup with Denver is a good matchup for them. Can the worst shooting team in the playoffs, can they really make a mark in the playoffs? Because you don't know which team you're going to see. And as far as Paul George, not to make an excuse for him, but he's really struggled with his shoulder injury. So he struggled shooting the basketball. He hit that typical wall that we see with 10 to 15 games left. We thought James Harden was going to hit, but we got James Harden dropping 50, dropping 60, showing us a video after the game. But Paul George, he has, not to make an excuse, since he was in that MVP conversation, he's run into a couple things from a shoulder standpoint that have really hampered his game.
And let me add to that. My question mark with the Thunder is the others. Terrence Ferguson, do I trust him?
Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, Jeremy Grant, do I trust him? Then you get, so those guys have to be good. Markieff Morris, are you going to implement him into the rotation where you can get something out of him? We know he can play, he can play well come playoff time. I worry about those guys because I believe that Westbrook can win a game by himself. He have one of those moments. Paul George can win a game by himself. So they're a team, if they fall 6, 7, 8, the top 3 teams don't want to play them in the first round. They're going to be a very tough out. Do I think they can make some noise and make a deep run? No. Westbrook has been too inconsistent for me offensively. I worry about his free throw shooting, only shooting 65% from the line.
I don't know what has happened to Russ.
Yeah.
Listen, Russ.
Him and LeBron drinking the same thing. Because of the top players in the league, those are the only two that we have seen that aren't 7-footers.
That aren't at least 70%. But here's the thing I don't get. LeBron was never 80%, right? LeBron was a 76% guy that somehow has gone to 67%, and it doesn't make sense. Russ, his MVP year was north of 80. For his career prior to last year was always around 78 to 82%. To all of a sudden be at 65%. It's such a bizarre thing. The LeBron thing makes a little more sense because he was never great at it. Russ was a really reliable free throw shooter at one point in time.
It becomes mental. I was a bad free throw shooter in my career, and I made it when it counted in the playoffs, but during the season, I think my career was like 60%.
You could never get your routine either. Sometimes you was off the line, sometimes you was on the line, sometimes you
I'm impressed that you know that.
Man,
I'm impressed that you knew that.
Man, you need to go somewhere.
So I think it's mental.
Have a consistent routine.
Because when I got traded to Dallas, they had a shooting coach, and he put me through this whole routine. He threw me all the way off. I shot 50. Yeah. He threw me. I haven't been the same since then. I was never the same. I blame the shooting coach in Dallas for this. But I just think it's mental, though, for LeBron and Westbrook. I think once you get in those bad ruts and you start missing free throws, especially when the game on the line and it counts and your teammate depends on you and you got to answer those tough questions at the end of the night because you didn't make your free throws, I think it becomes more mental.
But it goes towards everything. Every time we have discussion about the Thunder, it's how inconsistent they are. Between Russ and his shooting, the team playing, them having to go on a 24 run to beat the Pacers. That's why you don't know which team is going to show up. They're so inconsistent.
Well, and listen, we've done a lot of vacillating on this team throughout the year, but at one point in time, you asked the question, man, if the Thunder climb up to the 1 line, could Paul George be the MVP? That was the peak of their season. They were, I think, 3.5 games out of first in the West. Paul George playing the best basketball of his life. We were talking about what a great move it was for him to stay. Now we're 6 weeks later, and it's like, are they going to be one and done in the playoffs again? Is it 2 years of Russ and Paul George? That's how that.
One of our biggest problems is what we saw, because we saw Paul George, we saw him dominant, we saw Russ take that second seat. But our other problem is our friend Vinny V, who sat here. He was like, I talked to Golden State Warriors, and they are afraid of OKC more so than Houston. And it was like, well, man, he got that from the Warriors, so we include that in the show. So that's a part of it.
Yeah. All right, Antoine, thanks for hanging with us today.
Appreciate
Have a great
What's
day.
that
Coming up,
coach's name?
Mike Tomlin
I'm
speaks
looking
out
for
on
him
Big
right
Ben.
now.
Here's
That's
from
my
the next
career.
one, first things
Don't
first.
lie.
Back here with Coach Mangini. We're going viral, Coach. NFL owners approved a new rule that'll make both offensive and defensive pass interference calls reviewable, leading to speculation that teams will have somebody on staff looking at every pass play for a chance to challenge. Well, at least one team is already planning to do just that. Bob Labriola from Steelers.com tweeted that Mike Tomlin plans to use defensive assistant Terrell Austin in that capacity in 2019. Now, Nick, you're throwing your hands up. I know it. This is exactly what you said. This is your dream job.
No, not exactly what he said. Exactly what Cris said.
What?
No.
I said someone on the coaching staff.
Yes.
He's on the coaching staff. I know Terrell Austin.
Right. Agreed.
You said hire some.
No, I said they're going to have someone on the staff who's
dedicated.
This is their entire
No, you
job.
said add someone to the staff. I said have one the defensive.
Okay,
I said,
let's just focus on this for a
good
moment.
Lord.
What are they doing?
It is the worst job that you can have to be that dude.
What, the Photoshop?
No,
Okay.
well, the Photoshop guy is horrible.
The replay coach.
Whoever that person who's in that position, because you're only going to get credit when it's wrong. Like that's the only time they're gonna be on you. You're not going to get the.
You can't take credit for that.
The head coach.
You said hire someone. Add someone to the staff. I said you already have staff and you already have coaches up there. Have one of the other coaches do it. Is that not what I said?
You did say that. You misunderstood what I was advocating for at the time. It's no problem. It's no problem. I said I think they need to have someone, whether on the staff or not, that is their only job. That is what they do. All they do on game day is that.
I think the Photoshop is actually pretty good.
I'm fascinated by it. You're not looking right at the ref, though. Like who?
Similar.
I am looking at the ref. Jenna, it's a 2D image that portrays a 3D image.
I think
so
I
that's
got the
You're
body
looking at
type
the wrong
right.
person. That's your first problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Photoshop continues
To
to
perplex
confuse Jenna Wolfe the way
They got your beard, everything
Right.
nice.
The
good.
body
All right.
is accurate.
the body is not accurate.
If you were coaching football, that's how your body.
Oh,
would
okay.
look.
Just as soon as you become a coach.
Trust me. I'm an expert at this. There's a reason.
I was
Sticking
once
with
ripped,
Yes.
the Steelers.
then I became a coach.
Yes.
All right, guys, let's talk a little Big Ben. That was funny. Both Lev Bell and Antonio Brown are gone, so all focus has turned back to the Steelers quarterback. His leadership, or his lack thereof, has been a big topic of discussion this offseason. A number of former Steelers have shined light on Roethlisberger's questionable ways, while multiple current Pittsburgh players have defended the QB. Mike Tomlin was asked about Ben. Take a listen.
I have no problem with his play or his leadership. I've heard some of the scuttlebutt in which you mentioned. I'm focused on the guys that are within our group and on our team. I think that's what's appropriate for me. I have no reaction to former Steelers and things of that nature. We were a 9-6-1 football team last year. We all need to look in the mirror in terms of what we do and how we do it, starting with me. And so that's the approach that I'm taking. That's the approach that I'll ask him to take, and not in response to any criticism from the outside or anything of that nature. Just doing what's appropriate in terms of us being as good as we need to be.
Sounds like he's saying all the right things, Coach. What do you think about what Mike Tomlin had to say?
I agree with Mike Tomlin. Ben Roethlisberger has played 15 years. He's played with probably 1,000 guys. The guys that are most outspoken are two disgruntled guys. One who sat out the whole season and one who wanted to get traded. And you could look at the way that they handled their approach to the team, whether it was missing the last game of the season, whether it was deciding to sit out, however you want to view that. I don't know if you would argue those were the best teammates in the world, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. He's played 15 years. He's won every year except one season. He's had one losing season over that time. He's played with a lot of different types of guys. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard the one about he deliberately tried to fumble. I just went and watched that clip. he was supposed to reverse pivot, and he opened up the wrong way. It didn't look like there was any intent to fumble on his part. So to me, is it perfect? No. But is the Steeler way of doing things always perfect? No. We've always said they have a different way of
they have
conducting.
a different family dynamic.
Different family dynamic, and they're willing to talk about family business outside of the house, and that's how they do things. Is it perfect? No, but I am more in Tomlin's camp on this.
But when you have a family dynamic, good, bad, or indifferent, who sets the dynamic? The parents. And for the last decade, who have been the parents of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger. So, and I disagree with you that it's only L. Bell and Antonio that have talked about this. A lot of former Steelers. Well, Ryan Clark's talked about this. Hines Ward's talked about this.
When Ryan Clark's comments were nowhere near.
Not
nowhere
as,
even in the realm of the other two guys.
Agreed. No. Those guys are the most recent and certainly for AB the most inflammatory. I don't think Le'Veon Bell had really inflammatory comments. He was just like, I wish we were better buddies. You know what I mean? I wanted us to be closer friends. Antonio's the one that's taken a flamethrower to Big Ben, and Antonio has obviously his own issues as a teammate, his own off-the-field issues. He is not the perfect messenger for this, but I don't think it's all made up. I think what Big Ben is a first-ballot Hall of Famer, great quarterback that the Steelers wouldn't. There's not 7 guys in the league they would trade him for. They love him. They also know when he's not in the building, there's some extra maintenance that whether it's ego, personality, or just the way he thinks, maybe he thinks this is how I lead, that is going to come into play that does not come into play with Eli or Brady or a lot of our other quarterbacks that seem to handle their business in a more typical quarterback professional manner, but Tomlin's doing what he has to do, which is protect his guy. Tomlin's always kept his side of, I will always protect my players. Now, Big Ben hasn't always kept his side of, I will always protect my coaches, but Tomlin understands that's the cost of doing business with Ben Roethlisberger, and in large part, that's business, to quote Antonio Brown, has been booming the last decade, so it's been worth it.
My experience with NFL players, especially ones that have been inside that locker room, they understand the dynamic. I put a lot of weight in what they say. I said, forget all the people on television, whatever their opinions are about Ben Roethlisberger and Pittsburgh and what they got going on, forget all of them. Like, disregard all of them. I'll disregard Antonio and L. Bell because they were different in their approaches, but I will disregard all the information. Every great leader that I have seen, everyone would always question something about him. LeBron James every day of the week. I believe LeBron's a great leader. I talk to his teammates, people that won with him. Man, I believe LeBron's a great leader. I believe Tom Brady's a great leader. But there are complaints about both of them. There's complaints about LeBron. There's complaints about Tom Brady and his leadership. When they get rid of all these players in New England, why doesn't Tom ever say anything? When they bench Malcolm Butler and jeopardize his chance to win the 6th Super Bowl, why didn't Tom Brady say something? He didn't say anything until after the fact. So great leadership, still question. I believe Ben is a good leader. But there have been things that he has done that you can question. Great leadership doesn't come without being tested or questioned. So us saying that Ben Roethlisberger, we're not talking about how he played on the field. He's a tremendous football player. He's always there when you need him, has been there in big game situations, has the longevity, all those things. But just because we say we question things he did, all his leaderships are in question. Tom Brady, man, he could have been stepped up. He's the one that could face Belichick. He won one argument, the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. That was the only time because that had to do with him. But no one else he stepped up for. He just allowed a guy, Wes Welker, best friend, let him go. Gronk, if Gronk had a new contract, Gronk wouldn't be retiring. But because of the way they've done things there, so we can't expect always for people to have great leadership that people won't question them once they're out the door, Coach.
And what everybody forgets is a locker room is a very diverse community. It's diverse culturally, it's diverse in terms of the age, it's where people come from, so not everybody is going to relate
Coach,
to
in an
people
NFL
the
locker
same way.
room, wouldn't you say there's a lot of cliques? Like there's like 5 to 7 like different cliques or groups of guys.
And sometimes they're radically different. There's guys that are extremely religious. There's guys that really
Yep.
like the nightlife. There's the ones that are trying to figure out how they fit
There's certain
in.
parts of the locker room they call the suburbs. They call one end the high-end district, one end they call the projects.
The people that make a ton of money.
Yes.
The people that don't make very much
People don't
money.
clean up themselves. So there are a lot of different groupings inside
What was the
of
last
that.
one? The
Clean up
people
their
that-
area. Clean up their area around their
They're
locker
not clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're trying to navigate through all those things. And look, at the end of the day, it's called leadership, not friendship. And you're not gonna necessarily endear yourself to everybody in the room. But at the end of the day, you're trying to get everybody to go in the same direction. And people approach it differently. Look, if Bill Belichick wasn't winning the way he was winning, and I was with him when he was in Cleveland and he wasn't winning, they didn't like his leadership very much. But once you start winning,
great example.
suddenly it's, wow, this is inspiring. This must be the way it is. They write books about you. You know, all those things. You lose a little bit. It's like, well, he's lost his edge. He's not friendly enough to the players. So it's easy to criticize the person who's in front of the room. But go ahead and step up and you get in front of the room and let's see how well you do in comparison to my style.
Hey, look, this is what we saw with Kyrie Irving this year. You want to be a leader, try to be a leader. It didn't quite work. He
Good
had to take a
example.
bit of a step back. Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.